There are wounds that time alone cannot heal. Scars etched deep within the heart, right inside the place we once called home, the one place we thought would always be safe. I was born a twin, just 12 minutes younger than my sister. But that tiny gap, those mere minutes, drew an invisible line between being seen and being invisible in my family's eyes. My parents had always wanted just one child. But fate gave them two. From day one, one child was the golden child, bathed in love and attention. That child was my sister Allison. And me? I felt like a shadow fading in her light, ignored, sidelined, always chasing a love I could never fully catch. I tried so hard, in silence, to prove my worth. But every achievement I earned only seemed to make them love Allison more and resent me deeper. The day I turned 21, instead of celebration and joy, I faced coldness and neglect. Allison got whisked away on a beach trip with friends, while I was left alone with nothing but a note and a small gift card. That moment shattered me. It was then I made a choice, to walk away and never look back, to build my own life far from the family that never chose me. For 2 years, I stayed away. But when a terrible car accident left my parents hospitalized, the past came crashing back. They asked my sister first to help, not surprising she refused. Then they called me, asking for financial help, to cover sky-high medical bills. Torn between resentment and duty, I faced a crossroads, repay the pain or reclaim my peace. Before we dive deeper, tell us in the comments below where you're watching from. We'd love to know. Now, sit back and enjoy the story. This is my story, a tale of rivalry, heartache, and ultimately, self-preservation. Together, we'll explore the painful chapters, the moments of bitter confrontation, and what it truly means to find freedom in choosing yourself. Stay tuned for the journey ahead. From the moment I first understood the world, I knew I was living in the shadow of someone else, my twin sister, Allison. Just 12 minutes older than me, but it might as well have been 12 years. Because to my parents, she was the perfect child, the golden one, while I was barely an afterthought. They had wanted only one child. The discovery that there were two of us felt like a cruel twist of fate to them. A twist that forced them to love one and forget the other. I still remember the ache in my chest during family dinners, when my parents would beam at Allison's smallest achievements but barely glance in my direction. The humiliating moments when my good grades were just expected, while Allison's mediocre ones were celebrated like triumphs. I tried everything, top grades, excelling in sports and clubs, anything to prove I deserved their love. But every attempt seemed to push me further into the background. It wasn't just my parents. Even relatives took Allison's side almost instinctively. My aunt would ask Allison excitedly about her latest school project but would only nod curtly when I tried to share my own successes. At school, some classmates believed Allison's version of things, how I was the jealous twin always trying to outshine her. That label stung because it twisted the truth, painting me as the villain when all I had wanted was acceptance. I was haunted by the hostility in my parents' eyes when I outperformed Allison. Their coldness wasn't just disappointment, it was like a wall slammed in my face every time I tried to shine. Allison, on the other hand, was a master of fake vulnerability. She'd cry over small things I did better, making the whole family rally around her, as if I was the one causing her pain. It was exhausting, this endless battle for love that often turned into a war of manipulation. Despite the loneliness, despite the wounds, I held on to the hope that someday it would change, that if I just tried harder, they'd finally see me. But I was only fooling myself. And it was my uncle, his voice slurred and harsh at a drunken Thanksgiving party, who shattered that fragile hope. It was him who revealed the truth, that my parents never wanted two children, that only one could hold their heart. That night, after hearing those words, something inside me broke. I stopped trying to win my parents' love. I stopped pretending it mattered. The rivalry with Allison wasn't just sibling jealousy anymore, it was survival. I found myself retreating deeper into my studies and extracurriculars, not because I loved them, but because they became the only things that felt like control in an uncontrollable situation. Meanwhile, Allison soaked up all the attention, even if it meant twisting stories or playing the victim. I hated that but couldn't deny its effectiveness. Through those years, I wasn't just fighting to be seen, I was fighting to protect what little self-esteem I had left. Each celebration Allison received felt like salt in a wound, each slight from my parents, a reminder that I was invisible. And yet, this pain was mine alone, I couldn't share it. Who would listen? Who would believe someone cast aside in their own family? As I brace for the next phase of my story, I want you to imagine living under this weight every day, the relentless feeling that no matter what you do, you're never enough. This pain molded me, yes, but it also taught me resilience. Living with Allison was like walking into a minefield every day. It wasn't just the obvious favoritism, what made the wound even deeper was her mastery in twisting the truth, bending emotions like a seasoned puppeteer. She knew exactly how to make others believe she was the victim, the fragile sister who needed protection, while in reality, she was the one pulling the strings. I learned early on that no matter how hard I tried, my successes would quickly be overshadowed by her tears and tales of hurt. Allison was skilled at turning moments of my pride into moments where I was made to look like the villain. When I brought home awards or recognition, she'd smile sweetly, then quietly tell our parents how hurt she was that I made her feel less than. And somehow, her heartbreak always won the sympathy, every single time. The cruelty of it wasn't always words or actions directed at me alone, it was the way she enlisted everyone else, relatives, neighbors, even teachers, into her carefully woven narrative. My aunt, a normally gentle woman, would suddenly look at me with disappointment, saying things like, "Don't hurt Allison's feelings, she has a fragile heart." It was like being in a play where I was cast as the antagonist, and no matter how genuine my intentions, the script was already written. What made it worse was how much I wanted to believe she cared. Deep down, I thought maybe if I just pushed harder, fought smarter, I could break through her act and find a real sister beneath the mask. But Allison wasn't interested in competition, she wanted spotlight and validation at any cost. I remember one night, after a big school event where I was praised, she whispered loudly enough for others to hear that I only succeeded because I cheated or had it easy. Those words sliced through me like knives, stinging worse because they came from my own blood. The psychological games played between us were exhausting, like a war without weapons, fought with silence, glances, and unspoken grudges. My parents often sided with Allison, believing her hurt feelings were real, which left me isolated. I felt like I was constantly walking on eggshells, painfully aware that if I showed too much strength, I'd be punished with more coldness and alienation. But showing weakness meant becoming her pawn. There were moments when I caught glimmers of vulnerability in Allison, those rare instances when her mask slipped for just a second. In those fleeting moments, I saw the lonely, scared girl she must be underneath. Yet just as quickly, that glimpse vanished, replaced by the cunning smile that reminded me she was playing a game to survive and win. My friends played a small but significant role in my journey. Sarah, my closest confidant, was the first person I truly opened up to. She witnessed the silent battles and the emotional scars and reminded me that I was not alone, that sometimes love has boundaries. Her unwavering support gave me strength when I wanted to give up. On the other hand, some classmates unknowingly fed into Allison's narrative, making me feel like an outcast even among peers. In these years of rivalry and manipulation, I grew tougher, not just in spirit but in understanding human nature and the complexity of family love twisted by favoritism. I realized surviving Allison's games meant more than winning love, it meant protecting my own heart. As I prepared to share what happened when I finally reached my breaking point, leading up to my 21st birthday. The day my life changed forever. Remember this, growing up in a house divided by love and cruelty isn't just painful, it teaches you the bitterest lessons about trust, resilience, and self-worth. Turning 21 is supposed to be a milestone filled with celebration, love, and hope, the moment you step into adulthood with the full blessing of your family behind you. But for me, that day was nothing like the dream. It was the day everything I believed about family shattered into a million pieces. I had spent the past 4 years pouring my heart and soul into school, graduating from one of the top business schools in the state with honors. I was the valedictorian, a scholarship student, accomplishments I thought would finally make my parents proud. But instead of congratulations or a warm embrace, I was met with silence. No phone calls, no flowers, no surprises. Just the cold, echoing vacuum of their indifference. Then came the cruelest blow. The day before my birthday, I came home after a long day of internship, expecting maybe a quiet dinner or a simple acknowledgement. But all I found was a note. A note that said they had left for the beach with Allison and her friends. They were going to be gone for days, leaving me behind alone, with only a $50 gift card that felt like a slap in the face. The betrayal cut deeper than I could have imagined. I sat on the kitchen floor, holding that note, feeling invisible, abandoned, and unloved. I realized then that no matter how much I achieved, no matter how hard I worked to earn their approval, I would always be second in their eyes. That night, I cried not just for the lost birthday but for a lifetime of love I'd never fully had. That was my breaking point. I couldn't stay in a house where family meant coldness and rejection. I packed my bags quietly, without a word to anyone, and moved in with a friend willing to help me start fresh. It was terrifying and liberating at the same time. Leaving wasn't just about space, it was about survival, saving what was left of my heart. But what shocked me even more was the complete lack of reaction. No one called to ask if I was okay, no one pleaded for me to stay. My parents seemed almost relieved that I was gone. Allison? She didn't care enough to notice. That cruel void was confirmation. I mattered so little to them that my absence didn't even register on their radar. Through the support of friends like Sarah and a few others who stood by me, I learned to piece myself back together. They reminded me that family isn't always about blood, sometimes it's about those who choose to stand by you when your own don't. Yet the wounds of that birthday echo in my mind every day, a bittersweet reminder of the love I longed for but never received. It also marked the start of a new chapter, one where I could finally decide who I wanted to be without the heavy chains of expectation and neglect. 2 years had passed since I left that house behind. The house filled with silence and cold neglect. I'd carved out a life of my own, quiet but stable, far from the family that had never truly embraced me. I was healing, piece by fragile piece. And then, out of nowhere, came a phone call that shattered whatever fragile piece I'd found. "It's your parents, they've been in a serious car accident." My uncle's voice quivered over the line, heavy with worry and a hint of something else, perhaps guilt. My heart clenched instantly. I hadn't been ready for this. Not emotionally. Not financially. But I knew I had to see them. I found them in the hospital, both battered but alive. My mother's ribs crushed, yet her spirit fiercely stubborn, my father bruised and bandaged, still holding on to his pride. No health insurance, no safety net, they had lived with a dangerous belief that if we're careful, we won't need it. A belief I'd spent years railing against in private. My mind raced as I processed the situation. Their injuries were serious, and the bills? Crushing. And then came the harsh truth: I was asked to help pay. I remember the knot in my stomach tightening as I listened, feeling every word like a weight sinking deeper into my chest. My parents, the ones who barely acknowledged my existence for years, were now depending on me financially. It felt like the universe had flipped upside down. I thought about Allison. She was told first about the accident, yet she refused to come home. She claimed she couldn't abandon her stepchildren and new family, who weren't even biologically hers. I was left with a bitter mix of anger and sorrow. How could the favorite daughter turn her back on her own parents when they needed her most? Their reasons for refusing to help were tangled in pride, manipulation, and convenience. And here I was, the forgotten child, suddenly thrust into a responsibility I never asked for. Inside me, a fierce storm raged. Part of me screamed to protect myself, to hold on to the independence I'd fought so hard to build. Another part wrestled with guilt, the haunting voice of duty and compassion. Could I really abandon them, even after all the years of pain? Family was never simple for me. It had always been a battlefield of betrayal and love twisted into something unrecognizable. But this? This was the hardest test yet. During this time, I found support in unexpected places. Sarah didn't judge me for my feelings. Instead, she reminded me that sometimes, saying no is an act of self-love. My therapist, Dr. Harper, helped me untangle the guilt from the truth that my parents' choices, their negligence, weren't my burden to carry alone. I thought about the promises my parents made, that they'd pay me back, that this was just temporary. But after years of broken promises, trust wasn't easy to rebuild. In the days that followed, calls from my parents intensified, anger, desperation, even threats. It was a brutal reminder that love can sometimes morph into control. My mother's accusations of ingratitude, my father's final words, cutting me off as if I was a stranger, each sting wrapped around my soul. Yet, amidst the chaos, I was learning to find a new definition of family, not one rooted in obligation or pain, but in respect and boundaries. Just when I thought the storm had passed, when I had started to put the pieces of my fractured life back together, Allison showed up at my doorstep. Unexpected, unwelcome, yet impossible to ignore. She had changed, at least on the surface. Gone was the brash girl I knew, replaced by someone polished and refined, her voice softer but carrying the same sharp edge underneath. The way she carried herself now screamed sophistication, a mask carefully crafted to hide the chaos beneath. She talked about her life, the lavish parties, the manicured nails, the seemingly perfect days as a stay-at-home mom to her 2 toddlers. Yet, behind the speeches about the underrated joys of traditional motherhood, I heard a subtle desperation, a longing for validation that felt all too familiar. But none of that softened the blow when she started complaining, not about her life, but about our parents. How needy they were, how much they demanded from her new family, how unfair it was that she had to abandon her kids just to visit them after the accident. It was bitterly ironic. Here she was, the golden child, now painting herself as the victim, shifting the blame onto those who had treated me like an outsider for years. I struggled to keep my composure as she spoke, this woman asking for sympathy for herself while I sat there, the ignored daughter who had been fighting for years just to be noticed. She wanted me to bury the hatchet, to step in and be the emotional support they needed, so she could return to her life of ease. The familiar sting of manipulation cut through me. Allison playing the victim again, using guilt like a weapon. My skin itched with anger and old wounds began to bleed. How could she act so entitled when she had never truly cared? Yet, beneath it all, was a painful recognition, this was my sister, the other half of my soul, twisted and broken in her own way. Throughout our conversation, I caught glimpses of the sister I once hoped to have, vulnerable, achingly human. But those moments were fleeting, quickly replaced by the woman who had learned to survive through control and cunning. Our words clashed like thunder, polite on the surface, razor-sharp underneath. I nodding through her monologues about her perfect family life, barely concealing my urge to interrupt, to call her out. But I held my tongue, knowing this confrontation was mine alone to bear. After nearly an hour, she left, her parting words a hollow promise to keep in touch. We both knew that was a lie. She was relieved to leave, just as I was glad to see her go. But that visit forced me to face a truth I'd long tried to ignore: family isn't just about blood. It's a battlefield filled with fragile hearts, betrayals, and messy love. More importantly, it made me realize that the life I choose now, one far away from these toxic ties, is truly mine to claim. After years of silent suffering, manipulation, and brittle family bonds, I finally understood what freedom truly meant, not just escaping the physical walls of that house, but breaking the chains that bound my heart and spirit. Cutting ties with my family was the hardest decision I've ever made. It felt like losing a part of myself, yet it was also the moment I began to find myself. Every call ignored, every message blocked, was a brick laid in the foundation of my new life, one built on respect, love, and boundaries. The pain of rejection, the bitterness of being cast aside as if I never mattered, still lingers deep within me. But I transformed that pain into strength, a shield to protect my fragile heart. I learned that sometimes, self-love means saying no to those who should have loved you unconditionally, because love without respect is just hurt in disguise. Friends like Sarah became my new family, anchors of support and kindness. They walked alongside me through the darkest nights, reminding me that I was worthy of love and belonging. My therapist, Dr. Harper, helped me untangle the complicated knots of guilt and resentment, teaching me the power of forgiveness, not for their sake, but for mine. I reflect often on Allison, on the sister I lost and found in pieces. Our paths have diverged so completely, and yet the echoes of our shared past still haunt me. But I no longer carry the weight of rivalry. Instead, I carry the lessons of resilience and the hope of healing. My journey toward spiritual freedom isn't linear. Some days, the wounds feel fresh, the memories sharp, and the pain overwhelming. But with each step, I reclaim more of myself, learning to love the parts that were forgotten, to trust again, and to live fully. This is not just my story, it's a testament to anyone who's ever felt unseen, unloved, or broken by the very people who were supposed to protect them. Healing is possible. Freedom is within reach. As I close this chapter, I invite you, wherever you are, whatever your scars, to hold on to hope. To believe that beyond pain lies peace, and beyond darkness, there is light waiting to guide you home. Thank you for sharing this journey with me. If this story resonated, please leave a comment and share where you're watching from. Your voice matters, more than you know. And remember, the hardest battles often lead to the most beautiful victories.